어서 오세요.
잠시 개명을 하러 왔소이다.
아, 예?
서류 주시오. 도장 찍을 테니.
아유, 예. 아, 이 자라사, 거기 장시 개명용지 좀 가져와요. 예. 제 방으로 들어가시죠.
이제 오발다. 유난만 또 유다이군야. 요즘으로 보시와. 나다는 하나니야 나다. 인로 해요. 우리 모두 우리 하시는 거요 이기공이게. 나를 시작해오.
My dear friend Gerwin, let's walk. I was thinking about, there are many things that I like to talk to you. The first one, of course, it's about what you have done here.
Mm-hmm.
A group of selected films from
South Korea.
South Korea from the 40s, right?
Yeah,
till
up to
nowadays.
Up till nowadays, exactly.
Which
Yeah.
is by a whole idea of counted by history.
Haunted by
And-
history, indeed.
And you have thought about films which are connected with neighbors, bad neighbors or not so neighbors, but countries which were tempted to take over Korea.
Not
Sometimes-
countries, one particular country.
Yes.
Because as maybe not everybody knows, Korea was from between 1910 and 1945 a Japanese colony.
Yeah.
This is part of Japanese expansion in East Asia, imperialism of the first half of the 20th century.
And which is one of the most terrible things because they were not only there, they were trying to be in other countries around.
Of course, I mean they saw the Korean Peninsula as a stepping stone to
go.
China and beyond. Yes.
And what do you think what is the benefits to understand history through films? Because this is a project you have taken
Yes.
to see how the Russians try to be
is.
there.
So in a way, the idea combines a few different angles. In the first place, it offers an audience and interested people an opportunity to see or to become acquainted with classic Korean cinema. Which is still like a field to be discovered much more.
Mm-hmm.
For many years, all these Korean films they were made only for Koreans, and unlike many other cinemas or productive cinemas, because for many years there was a lot of cinema production in Korea already without it being exported. The Koreans, like many developing countries, after the Korean War, maybe it was the poorest country in the world, with no resources to sell, no, just hard work. So this is one thing to give a possibility to see films by sometimes masterful filmmakers that have like one or two films that are internationally known, maybe like The Housemaid, which has become like a
Yes, in 2000 the Korean cinema became really more knowledge. Hong Sang-soo.
Yeah,
Bong Joon-ho,
and then only at
Lee
the end of
Shan-dong.
exactly at around 2000, the what people say Korean wave or so started.
Yeah.
But many of the filmmakers before, of course, already dealt with the issues that their society was doing, but they was facing, including the colonial era, the trauma of the colonial era, and the effects that Japanese culture had on Korean culture, and this was not the way the colonial authorities handled these issues was not benevolent, or they were really wanted to change Korea into Japan, because they considered them inferior Japanese culturally.
In that sense, you took a film which is Tuition,
Yes.
which was a film that has been done
yes.
under that
Yes,
period.
Tuition, formerly, I guess, is not a Korean film, nor is it really a Japanese film, but it will be a Joseon film, as the colony was referred to. So it's produced in 1941. So when just before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, but still under, so part of the reason, the raison d'être of the film is propaganda-wise.
But it gives an idea and an impression, right, of what was.
Well, certainly of what was possible, but on the other hand, it's not only that. Because one of the things that was very much on the mind of the Japanese is to make all education in Korea was done in Japanese. They had to change their names. The Koreans were pushed to change their names into something Japanese. So there was an active repression of Korean culture, and in a way, this film, on the one hand, it is you can see elements of propaganda, portraying a Japanese teacher as somebody who is very human and warm, but also somehow making an argument for Koreans to join the Japanese Imperial Army, but at the same time, it uses Korean language where it can, trying to just really escaping in a way censorship, but it also in its humanist heart, it is of course anti-fascist, because if humanism is anything, it's for sure it's anti-fascist. So and this. So this is let's say, indeed, in a way, an exception to the other films.
Program.
But it also shows that all the other films, up to probably the Murmuring, which is a documentary about the fate of now older ladies who were forced as sex slaves by the Japanese. But then it's a documentary that a female filmmaker made in the 1990s, when these ladies finally started to talk about these things.
The Comfort Woman.
Sorry,
Comfort
Woman, yes. Comfort Woman, of course, is a euphemism. They were sex slaves.
Yeah. They were basically that.
But this use of words, and which words you use, always is part of the debate. So. Many of the more classic films, they were made under a situation where the government in South Korea was patriarchal, conservative, capitalist, repressive, very repressive, and so which is not, in my mind, the best way to talk about a colonial trauma. But still, they do. So you can see. Of course, also not just a reflection on the colonial era, but like all historical films, they are probably more about the time they are made than about the period they portray.
How do you perceive? You have chosen a couple of films which are being done in different decades.
Yes, and a wide variety of genres. So
Exactly.
so within let's say a fixed number of 12 films now, I wanted to show as many possible genres who all have different attitudes to dealing with trauma. They can be seen as therapy, as a national therapy.
Which I think is a kind of feature of the Korean cinema, because even the films that nowadays we see, immediately you can easily realize, like for instance Bong Joon-ho, he used genres, but at the same time it's quite clear how he deals with history
Yes.
and drama,
Yes.
and that
So,
could be
of
or
course,
Lee
and
Shandong.
often it is. So now there is an independent cinema, but for a long time there was no independent cinema, and Bong Joon-ho, of course, works within the confinements of an industry. So not as in that way, not as an author. He uses the means of a highly developed industry, which means he has to. He can't do a Hong Sang-soo. Hong Sang-soo went the other way.
Yeah, but in the case, how do you perceive that? And maybe I like to go back in the second chapter of this meeting, Hong, because one of the, everybody loves Hong. I do love so much Mr. Hong, but one of the strange cases in Hong is very difficult to catch through his films any sense of history.
Yes.
Maybe it's something to be discussed once.
So indeed, maybe the historical film is a genre film, of course. So Hong and many other, let's say, independent Korean filmmakers, they don't have the means. They have other things on their mind than to make a historical drama.
But
so
not
I have
only
no
in terms
idea
of,
if
not
he
only in
would
terms
be
of
interested in that,
drama,
but I doubt
in terms
it.
of recreating a moment in the history, but how you perceive in the present some traces of history, which in that case,
And
someone like Lee
within Hong
Shandong.
Kong, yes, with Lee Shandong very much, but not so far, not going back to
Not
the
back
colonial
to-
trauma, but to other events. So there have been other events in the history of Korea that have been very like elements of the dictatorship, such as
like
the
peppermint candy.
like the massacre in Gwangju.
Yeah.
But for instance, his first film was a gangster film. And gangsters, the whole idea of gangsterism in Korea is you can directly lead back to the Japanese colonial era. It's an import, the way Korean gangsterism now. But at the same time, you couldn't say that. So even like today, we will show an Im Kwon-taek film, who started already in the 60s, and then had his 91st film.
I know, but let's talk about him in the second moment.
Okay.
Because this is the biggest filmmaker they have, and I think you chose 2 films by him, which is an exceptional decision by you. But let me give the audience a pause.
Please.
talking about Ingoltaek.
In contact, yes.
Yes, you have two films, The General Son on one hand, and on the other hand was
The genealogy.
The genealogy. You were referring now about the genealogy, right?
No, the one I was about to refer to was The General
The
Son,
General Son, okay.
which is his, I believe, his 91st film. And Jokpo is a film from the late 70s, and probably his 76th or so. But oddly enough, one of the first films that he made where he really started to express his own interest in Korean cinema and sorry, in Korean culture and history. Before, he would just endlessly make cheap genre films. I mean, not that they're not interesting, but he would make 10 a year, and only very late he started to become more aware of his own possibility to show the beauty of Korean culture but also the traumas of his country and the challenges of his country in cinema. So the first one, the oldest one, the genealogy, deals with an element in the Japanese era, what I just talked about, how the Japanese pressured Koreans to change their name into something that could be seen easily as a Japanese character name. And the second one, The General Son, is actually, in a way, or not in a way, it is a return to genre filmmaking for him. He had been making internationally more and more appreciated, but locally not very commercially successful films. So at some point in the early 90s, he was asked, or his producer suggested, he makes a film about Kim Do-han. And Kim Do-han is one of the fact that I came across this character in going to Korea, or working my way through many Korean films. It's also one of the reasons why this program exists, because he's a myth. And a very strange one, and only that I think one that can only be understood if you look a bit closer to the Korean history. So in The General Son, he is portrayed as like you would see a Scorsese, the birth of a gangster leader. So he's on the streets. He works his way, he fights his way into becoming an appreciated member of a gang. And interestingly, of course, these gangs, also historically correct, they were related to cinemas. So they all had their own cinema where they would hang out, and so this is. And so you will see in The General Son, you will see a clip of a historical Korean film, which was of course just shot by Imcontact for the occasion, but it's a great representation of what Korean cinema looked at back in the day, even if most of it has been lost, of course.
How was the approach?
But this just to quickly finish, I'll be as short as possible. But this Kim Do-han person was in real, even if he, towards the end of his life, he wrote an autobiography, which is little of it is true, but it was very popular. Because he was a gangster. Then right after the war, he organized fascist youth to kill lots of communists, and then he was even convicted to. He was sentenced to death by an American court, but nothing came of it. And quite soon after, he managed to get himself elected to parliament. And even as many of his other fellow criminals were hanged by different dictators, but he managed to survive all that. So he's, by myth, he had the strongest fists of Asia. He was never beaten. He would beat even the Japanese judo stars, etc. Whether this is true, maybe, but But of course, he was just a bully and a criminal, and not an anti-Japanese hero, as he turned himself into. And actually also then just this name of the film's title, The General's Son, refers to that he claims an anarchist general who fought in Manchuria against the Japanese, a Korean independence fighter, would be who was murdered by a communist. That would be his father. Also very doubtful, but you can still see in Korean series or films somebody suddenly saying, "Oh, who do you think you are, Kim Do-han?" And this is the Kim Do-han of the myth, of the unbeatable fighter, and not Kim Do-han,
the historical figure.
The historical figure.
If someone doesn't know you, they might ask,
like all your viewers.
But who are this fellow from Netherlands who has curated a kind of approach towards South Korean history through films when he is from Netherlands? But the truth is...
This is one of the certainly in a contemporary cultural climate where appropriation, is let's say a complicated subject. It was one of the more attractive things for me to consider, that I, as a foreigner, proposed this historical small look at. To say that one of the reasons is because the Koreans don't do it themselves.
Yeah.
The subject of the relation between historical relation between Korea and Japan is still very touchy. Mostly because the Japanese have never properly said sorry, but also for other reasons that are more Korean. And so it's not most let's say educated Koreans with an interest in culture. They are very interested also in Japanese, in Japan and in its writing and filmmaking, but politically, it's still a taboo.
Yeah, yes, it's quite. You know, there is an Argentinian film called "Partió de mí un barco llevándome" by Cecilia Khan, who is an Argentinian Korean filmmaker, and you could see easily that.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely like the way that you are expressing and describing.
But
I wanted to introduce what I was telling you, because people should know that you have had 26 years behind you in Rotterdam Film Festival.
Yes.
And Rotterdam Film Festival has always been a festival which were extremely sensitive toward Asian cinema. And that's in a way explain that, even though that you are much more known in Argentina as the one who understood, and you did, Latin American films. But I know that you have both, your heart has always been divided by Asians and Latin Americans in a way.
국경, 살얼음치는 국경. 조선과 만주를 가르는 국경을 사이에 두고 한많은 강물은 흘러 어디로 가느냐, 서해로 가느냐, 태평양으로 가느냐, 과연 어디로 갈 것인가. 한편 여기는 국경도시 의주, 쫓기는 사나이들이 있었으니 앞선 사나이는 김영철이요, 또한 사나이는 박동일이었다. 동일아, 우리 하룻빈에서 만나자. 이들은 왜 쫓기는 몸이 될 수밖에 없었던 것이었던가. 드디어 때는 바야흐로 시베리아로부터 휘몰아쳐오는 폭풍 한설이 매운 기세를 더하는 엄동지절에 조선의 백성들은 추위와 허기에 굶주린 배를 움켜쥐고 살 수밖에 없었던 것이었다. 조선의 백성들아, 옥순아, 하룻빈으로 가자. 어서.